when Maya Chen returns to Thunder Bay after 12 years to settle her grandmother's estate, never expected to find a mysterious stranger living in the house. Gabriel Morrison claims her grandmother hired him as a private investigator, but Maya's gut tells her there's more to his story. What starts as a simple case of mistaken identity quickly spirals into a deadly game of deception. When armed assassins storm the house, Maya discovers her parents' accidental deaths 12 years ago were actually murder-sand. The killers had been waiting for her return, forced to trust Gabriel with her life. Maya finds herself falling for the enigmatic man who seems determined to protect her. But in a world where everyone has secrets, can she trust her heart? And what price will she pay when the truth finally comes to light? Asterisk story time, fam. And this one is dripping with romance, secrets, and one unforgettable twist. Let's jump straight into it. Asterisk. The cigarette smoke curled through the amber streetlight like dying prayers as Maya Chen stepped out of the taxi, into the October rain. Thunder Bay looked exactly as she'd left it 12 years ago when she was 17, desperate and running from a truth too heavy to carry. The same cracked sidewalks stretched toward the harbor where oarships groaned. Under their cargo, the same neon signs buzzed and flickered in windows of shops that should have closed decades ago. She pulled her leather jacket tighter and stared at the Victorian mansion looming before her. The wraparound porch sagging under the weight of neglect. Her grandmother's house, her inheritance, her punishment. You sure this is the right address, miss? The taxi driver leaned out his window, rain dripping from his baseball cap. Maya nodded and paid him, watching his taillights disappear into the storm. Alone now, except for the ghost she'd tried so hard to outrun, she'd climbed the front steps. Each creak of the rotting wood sent ice through her veins. She'd built a life in Toronto, scraped together enough money to open her own art restoration business, convinced herself she'd never have to come back to this place where her parents had died in the fire that consumed half the neighborhood. The key turned easily in the lock, as if the house had been waiting for her. Inside, the smell hit her immediately. It's not just dust and abandonment, but something else, something living. The beam of her phone's flashlight revealed furniture draped in white sheets like corpses, family photos turned face down on every surface. Someone had been here recently. The hardwood floors bore fresh scuff marks, and a coffee mug sat on the kitchen counter, still warm to the touch. "Hello!" Her voice echoed through rooms thick with memory. No answer came, but she heard it then. Footsteps on the floor above, slow, deliberate, moving toward the stairs. Maya's pulse hammered against her throat. She grabbed a poker from beside the cold fireplace and started toward the staircase, each step forward feeling like walking deeper into her own grave. The footsteps stopped. Then she saw him. He stood at the top of the stairs, silhouetted against the pale light filtering through the landing window, tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that caught the shadows. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then he descended, and the light revealed a face that made her breath catch. Sharp cheekbones carved by years of hard-living eyes, the color of winter sky, and a scar that ran from his left temple to his jaw like a question mark written in flesh. "You must be Maya." His voice was gravelly worn, smoothed by whiskey and cigarettes. "I'm sorry about your grandmother." "Who the hell are you?" She raised the poker higher. "What are you doing in my house?" A smile ghosted across his lips. But it held no warmth. "Your house? It's interesting, considering I've been living here for the past 6 months." "Impossible. She died 3 weeks ago." The lawyer said the house was empty. Lawyers say a lot of things. He reached the bottom of the stairs and stopped just outside the range of her makeshift weapon. "Your grandmother rented me the attic room. Cash only, no questions asked. She was good like that." Maya studied his face, searching for lies. His clothes were expensive despite their casual appearance. Dark jeans and a black sweater that probably cost more than most people made in a month, but there were tells. Calloused hands. A watchfulness in his posture that spoke of violence lived through and survived. "I don't believe you. Believe what you want." He shrugged. and moved toward the kitchen. But I paid rent through the end of November, and I don't plan on leaving. We'll see about that. Maya followed him, poker still raised. I'm calling. The police. Go ahead. He opened the refrigerator and pulled out a beer, popping it open with practiced ease. But you might want to ask them about the fire first. The one that killed your parents? Ask them why the case was never solved. The words hit her like a physical blow. The poker slipped from her numb fingers and clattered to the floor. How do you know about that? He took a long drink before answering, his eyes never leaving her face. Because I'm the one who's been investigating it all these years. Your grandmother hired me. That's impossible. She never said anything about hiring a private investigator to prove your parents were murdered. He set down the beer and pulled a thick manila folder from a drawer. She started paying me the month after you left town. Every clue, every dead end, every witness who suddenly developed amnesia. It's all in here. Maya's legs nearly buckled. She gripped the edge of the counter to keep herself upright. Murdered? But the fire department said it was an electrical fault. The fire department said what they were paid to say. His voice was gentle now, almost kind, which somehow made it worse. Just like the police said what they were paid to say. Just like the insurance company said what they were paid. To say why? The word came out as barely a whisper. That's the question your grandmother wanted answered. That's why she brought me here. He moved closer and she caught the scent of his cologne mixed with something darker. That's why you're here now, whether you know it or not. Thunder crashed. Overhead and the lights flickered. In that strobing darkness, Maya saw something in his expression that made her blood run cold. Not just determination, but hunger. The look of a man who'd spent years tracking prey. What's your name? She asked. Gabriel Morrison? He extended his hand, and when she didn't take it, he lowered it slowly. And Maya Chen, whether you like it or not, you and I are going to find out who killed your parents. I didn't ask for your help. No, he agreed, his smile returning. But you're going to need it, because whoever killed them, they know you're back in town. As if summoned by his words, a car engine gunned to life outside. Headlights swept across the windows, and Maya heard the screech of tires on wet asphalt. Gabriel moved to the window and pulled back the curtain just enough to peer out. How long? Since you told anyone you were coming here? Just the lawyer? And he? Maya stopped, realization dawning cold and sharp. He knew I was arriving tonight. Gabriel's jaw tightened. Get away from the windows. Now. It was too late. The first bullet shattered the kitchen window, sending glass cascading across the floor like deadly snow. Gabriel's body slammed into Maya, driving her to the floor behind the kitchen island as another bullet punched through the space where her head had been. The impact knocked the breath from her lungs, but his weight pressing her into the cold. Linoleum felt like the only solid thing in a world gone suddenly mad. Stay down. His breath was hot against her ear, his voice steady despite the chaos. How many exits does this house have? Front door, back door, basement door to the outside? Maya's words came in gasps. There's a fire escape from the second floor. Another volley of shots peppered the kitchen, shattering dishes and sending ceramic fragments raining down on them. Gabriel rolled away from her and low-crawled to a cabinet, pulling out what looked like a small arsenal. Pistol, extra magazines, a knife with a blade that gleamed like liquid mercury. Jesus Christ. Maya stared at the weapons. What are you, some kind of mercenary? Former military intelligence. He checked his pistol with practiced efficiency. Your grandmother didn't hire me for my investigative skills alone. This is insane. Why would anyone want to kill me? I've been gone for 12 years. Gabriel's eyes met hers across the ruined kitchen. Because you're Benjamin Chen's daughter. The name hit her like ice water. Her father had been Benjamin Chen, but he'd been an accountant, a quiet man who read bedtime stories and helped her with math homework, not someone worth killing over. My father sold insurance? Your father laundered money for the Torino family? Gabriel's voice was matter-of-fact, delivering devastation like a weather report. $23 million over 5 years, all of it moving through his legitimate business. When he tried to get out, they made an example of him. Shooting stopped abruptly, leaving only the sound of rain and Maya's hammering heart. Gabriel held up a hand, listening. Then came the sound they'd both been expecting. The front door. Splintering open. Back door, Gabriel whispered. Move. They crawled across the kitchen floor, staying below the sight lines of the windows. Maya's hands were slick with perspiration and blood from tiny glass cuts, but she forced herself to. Keep moving. Behind them, heavy footsteps entered the house. Gabriel reached the back door first, testing the handle. Locked. He pulled out his knife and worked at the mechanism with surgical precision, while Maya watched the kitchen doorway. Expecting armed figures to appear at any moment, got it. Door swung open into the storm. Run for the tree line. Don't stop. Don't look back. What about you? I'll be right behind you, Maya wanted to argue. But the sound of voices in the house cut off any protest. She sprinted into the rain, her feet sliding on the muddy ground. The forest that bordered her grandmother's property was a black wall against the storm, and she ran toward it like salvation. She was 20 yards from the trees when she heard Gabriel's pistol bark behind her. 3 shots, then silence. She turned, unable to help herself, and saw him framed in the doorway, his gun trained on something inside the house. Gabriel. Her shout cost him his advantage. A muzzle flash lit the doorway, and Gabriel staggered, clutching his shoulder. More shots followed, driving him back into the house. Maya stood frozen in the rain, torn between survival and something she couldn't name. She barely knew this man, but the thought of leaving him behind felt like abandoning a piece of herself. Before she could think better of it, she was running back toward the house. She circled around to the front, staying low. The door hung open, splintered wood scattered across the porch. Inside she could hear voices. Male, calm, professional. Check upstairs. Shh. Make sure there's no one else. What about Morrison? He's not going anywhere. That shoulder wound is worse than he's letting on. Maya crept closer to the broken door. Through the gap she could see into the living room. Gabriel sat in one of her grandmother's old chairs, his hand pressed against his shoulder, blood seeping between his fingers. 2 men stood over him, both wearing expensive suits despite the rain. The kind of men who made violence look like business. Where is she, Morrison? Who? Their taller man backhanded Gabriel across the face, snapping his head to the side. Don't play stupid, Maya Chen. We know she was here. Maybe she ran when the shooting started. Smart girl. Not that smart, or she wouldn't have come back to this shithole town. The shorter man moved to the window, peering out into the storm. She's close. They always come back for the night in shining armor. Gabriel's laugh was bitter. You don't know her at all. I know she's Benjamin Chen's daughter. I know she's got information that belongs to our employer. I know she's going to give it to us one way or another. What information? Gabriel's voice was weaker now, pain leaching the strength from it. She was 17 when she left. Just a kid. A kid who spent every day after school in her daddy's office doing homework while he worked. A kid who was smart enough to notice patterns, ask questions. The tall man crouched down beside Gabriel's chair. A kid who might have copied files before the fire destroyed everything. Maya's breath caught. She remembered those afternoons. In her father's office, the way he'd always seemed nervous when she was there. How he'd started locking his filing cabinets. She remembered the USB drive she'd found hidden in his desk drawer, one she'd taken and never looked at because she'd been too afraid of what she might find. The USB drive that was still hidden in her apartment in Toronto. Even if she has something, Gabriel said, what makes you think she'd trade it for my life? Because despite your cynicism, Morrison, some people still believe in doing the right. Bing, the tall man stood up. Marcus, go check the perimeter. She's out there somewhere. As the shorter man headed for the door, Maya pressed herself against the wall of the house. She had seconds before he found her, seconds to decide whether to run or fight. The smart play was to run, get back to Toronto, pretend none of this had ever happened, but Gabriel had risked his life for her. More than that, he'd spent years trying to find the truth about her parents' deaths when everyone else, including her, had given up. The shorter man stepped onto the porch, water streaming from his jacket. Maya was behind him now, invisible in the shadows. She could see the gun in his hand, see the casual way he held it. This was routine for him. Killing was routine. She picked up a piece of the splintered door, heavy oak with a jagged edge. When Marcus turned toward the trees, Maya stepped out of the shadows and drove the wooden spike into his back. He went down hard, his gun skittering across the wet boards. Maya grabbed it, her hand shaking so violently she could barely keep her grip on the weapon. She'd never held a gun before, never wanted to. But as Marcus groaned and tried to push himself up, she found the strength to point it at him. Stay down. Inside the house, the tall man's voice called out, "Marcus, what's the situation out there?" Maya looked at Gabriel through the doorway. Their eyes met, and she saw something pass between them. Recognition, trust, the acknowledgement that they were in this together now. Whatever this was. Tell him everything's fine, Maya whispered to Marcus, pressing the gun against his skull. Marcus raised his head, blood running from his mouth. When he spoke, his voice was steady, professional. "All clear. Just thought I heard something in the woods. Keep looking. I want her found." Maya helped Marcus to his feet, keeping the gun trained on him. Together, they walked into the house, where the tall man stood with his back to the door, still focused on Gabriel. "Don't move," Maya said. The tall man turned slowly, his expression more annoyed than surprised. "Miss Chen, right on schedule. Let him go." "I'm afraid that's not how this works." The man's gun was already in his hand, aimed at Gabriel's head. "You're going to give me what I want, or I'm going to paint these walls with his brains. Your choice." His finger tightened on the trigger, but she hesitated. She'd never killed anyone, never even imagined herself capable of it. That hesitation cost her everything. Marcus, despite his injury, moved faster than she'd expected. His elbow drove into her ribs, knocking the breath from her lungs. The gun flew from her hands and clattered across the floor. The tall man smiled. "Thank you for making this easy, Ms. Chen. Now, let's talk about that USB drive." The rope around Maya's wrists cut into her skin as Marcus finished tying her to the chair across from Gabriel. The tall man, who'd introduced himself as Vincent Torino, paced between them like a predator, savoring the hunt. Blood from Gabriel's shoulder wound had soaked through his sweater, staining it black in the dim light. "The USB drive, Ms. Chen? Where is it?" "I don't know what you're talking about." Maya's voice was steadier than she felt. She'd learned something about herself tonight. Fear didn't paralyze her the way she'd always thought it would. Instead, it sharpened her focus, made her mind work faster. Vincent stopped pacing and crouched down in front of her, close enough that she could smell his expensive cologne mixed with the metallic scent of gun oil. "Your father took detailed records of every transaction, every account number, every name. 5 years of the Torino family's business, all documented by a man who was supposed to be our friend. He was an accountant, not a criminal. He was both." Vincent's smile was cold as winter moonlight. When he decided to grow a conscience, he made copies of everything. Insurance, he called it. Protection for his family. Gabriel raised his head, his face pale, but his voice strong. "A lot of good it did them. That's because Benjamin was naive. He thought evidence would keep him safe, when what he should have understood. Is that the only thing that keeps you safe from people like me is distance? Lots of distance?" Vincent stood up and moved to the window. But he couldn't leave well enough alone. Started asking questions about where the money was really coming from, making noise about going to the FBI. Maya remembered the last few months before her parents died, her father's increasing paranoia, the way he'd started checking locks twice. Looking over his shoulder, she'd thought he was having a midlife crisis. Now she understood he'd been trying to keep them all alive. "So you killed them." "I did what was necessary to protect my family's interests." Vincent's tone was matter-of-fact, as if discussing the weather. The fire was supposed to destroy everything. The house, the evidence, your parents' inconvenient consciences. We didn't count on was Benjamin being smart enough to hide copies. And you think I know where they are? I know you do. Vincent turned back to her, his eyes gleaming. "Because 3 weeks ago your grandmother called my father, Said she had something that belonged to us, something she was willing to trade. Maya's blood went cold. You killed her too. Natural causes, I'm afraid. Heart attack brought on by the stress of negotiating with dangerous people. But before she died, she made it clear that you were the only one who knew where Benjamin hid his insurance policy. Across from her, Gabriel was watching Vincent with the intensity of a hawk studying prey. Despite his wound, despite being tied to a chair, he looked like he was calculating angles and distances, looking for an opening. My grandmother never mentioned any USB drive to me because she was protecting you, just like your father was protecting you when he sent you away that night. Vincent pulled out his phone and showed Maya a photo. It was her, 17 and terrified, climbing into a Greyhound bus bound for Toronto. We know he called you that night, told you to run. What did he give you to take with you? The memory hit Maya like a physical blow. Her father's panicked voice on the phone, telling her to pack only essentials and meet him at the bus station. The small package he'd pressed into her hands, wrapped in brown paper and sealed with tape. Take this to Toronto, he'd said. Hide it somewhere safe. Don't look at it. Don't tell anyone about it. If something happens to your mother and me, this will be the only thing that can protect you. She'd been too scared to ask questions, too young to understand what he meant. The package had sat in her closet for 12 years, forgotten under layers of dust and denial. I see you remember now. Vincent's smile widened. Where is it, Maya? Before she could answer, Gabriel spoke up. You're wasting your time, Torino. Even if she gives you what you want, you're not going to let us walk away. You're right, of course, Vincent shrugged. But I might make it quick instead of slow. That's something, isn't it? Here's a better idea. Gabriel's voice carried a new edge, something dangerous and sharp. Why don't you ask your buddy Marcus? They're about the real reason I've been investigating this case. Vincent frowned. What are you talking about? Ask him about the photographs your grandmother left for me. The ones showing Marcus here having lunch with your father 2 days. Before the fire, Marcus, who'd been standing quietly by the door, suddenly tensed. That's bullshit, Vince. He's trying to divide us, is he? Vincent's voice had gone very quiet. Because now that I think about it, Marcus, you were awfully eager to take point. On this job, awfully interested in making sure Maya Chen never made it back to Toronto alive. Maya saw the moment when the truth clicked into place in Vincent's mind. His hand moved toward his gun, but Marcus was faster. The shot was deafeningly loud in the enclosed space, and Vincent crumpled to the floor, clutching his chest. Sorry, boss. Marcus stepped over Vincent's body and picked up the fallen weapon. But some secrets are worth more than loyalty. Gabriel's laugh was bitter. Let me guess. You've been skimming from the family accounts, using Benjamin's laundering operation to hide your own side business. When he got cold feet about the whole operation, you couldn't let him expose everything. Very good, Morrison, though you're only half right. Marcus turned the gun on Gabriel. I wasn't skimming. I was building my own empire, using Torino money to fund it. Benjamin's records don't just show what the family was doing, they show what I was doing. Bank accounts in the Caymans, shell companies in Delaware, enough evidence to put me away for life. So you killed my parents to cover your tracks. Maya's voice was deadly calm. Then you spent 12 years waiting for me to come back so you could clean up the last loose end. Business is business, Marcus shrugged. Nothing personal. It's personal to me. The voice came from the shadows near the staircase. Oliver Hamilton stepped into the light, a gun in his hand aimed at Marcus's head. Maya recognized him from old family photos. Her grandmother's lawyer, the man who'd handled the estate. Oliver. Maya stared at him in confusion. How did your grandmother hired me to watch over you, Maya? She knew this day would come. Oliver's voice was steady, professional. She knew Marcus would eventually surface, looking for those records. Spun toward the new threat, but Oliver was ready for him. The shot took Marcus center mass, sending him sprawling across the floor beside Vincent's still form, in the sudden silence that followed. Maya could hear nothing but her own heartbeat and the rain against the windows. Oliver moved efficiently, checking both bodies to make sure they were dead, then cutting Gabriel and Maya free from their chairs. Are you hurt? Oliver asked Maya, his demeanor shifting from lethal to concerned in an instant. I'm fine. Maya rubbed her wrists where the rope had cut them. But Gabriel needs medical attention. I'm fine too, Gabriel said, though he was clearly in pain. Just need to stop the bleeding. Oliver pulled out his phone. I'm calling this in. Local police are compromised, but I have contacts at the FBI, who've been building a case against the Torino family for years. This should give them everything they need. Maya grabbed his arm. The USB drive. If it is evidence of the Torino family's money laundering, won't it also implicate other innocent people? Other accountants who got pulled into this like my father did? Oliver's expression grew grave. That's possible. Your father wasn't the only one they used. Gabriel struggled to his feet, one hand pressed against his wounded shoulder. So we have a choice. Turn over the drive and let the FBI sort out who was complicit and who was coerced, or destroy it and let the guilty go free. Maya looked between the two men, feeling the weight of decision pressing down on her. The drive represented justice for her parents, but it also represented potential destruction for people who might be as innocent as her father had been. There's a third option, she said slowly. What if we could separate the evidence, keep what proves the Torino families? Crimes destroy what implicates the innocent. That would require going through 12 years of financial records, Oliver warned. Complex stuff. It would take someone with serious accounting expertise to sort through it all. Maya almost smiled. My father didn't just leave me evidence. He left me an education. I've been doing forensic accounting for art fraud cases for the past 5 years. Gabriel was watching her with something that might have been admiration. Do you want to take on the mob by yourself, not by myself? Maya looked at him steadily. I'll need someone to watch my back while I work. Someone with experience in this kind of situation. That's assuming I survive this shoulder wound. You'll survive. Maya moved closer to him, close enough to see the flecks of gold in his winter blue. Eyes, you're too stubborn to die. But even as she spoke the words, Maya heard the sound that would haunt her dreams. Car engines. Multiple vehicles approaching the house fast. Oliver cursed and moved to the window. FBI? Wrong direction, Gabriel said grimly. They're coming from town, not the highway. Oliver's phone buzzed with an incoming text. Read it and went pale. Vincent Torino's father is mobilizing every soldier in the family. They know Vincent is dead. I felt the world tilt under her feet. They'd won the battle, but the war was just beginning. And now, with Gabriel wounded and their location compromised, they were about to face odds that would make their previous encounter look like a friendly conversation. The headlights swept across the windows as the first cars pulled into the driveway. Through the broken glass, Maya could see armed figures emerging from black SUVs. Back door, Gabriel said, but his voice lacked conviction. They all knew there was nowhere to run. That's when Maya made the decision that would change everything. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number she'd memorized years ago, but never used. What are you doing? Oliver hissed. Calling in a favor, Maya said as the phone connected. Hello, Agent Morrison. This is Maya Chen. I think it's time. You and I had that conversation about your brother Gabriel. Gabriel's face went white as bone as Maya ended the call. Outside, car doors slammed and voices shouted orders in the rain. The Torino soldiers were organizing, preparing for what they clearly expected to be a simple execution. How did you know? About David? Gabriel's voice was barely a whisper. Your grandmother told me. Maya pulled medical supplies from her jacket, remnants of the first aid kit Oliver had given her. She said she'd been corresponding with an FBI agent named Morrison for months. Someone who shared your last name and your obsession with this case. My brother. Gabriel winced as Maya pressed gauze against his shoulder wound. We haven't spoken. In 3 years? 'Cause you blame him for something that happened during your military service? Maya's hands were steady as she worked, but her voice carried an edge. Oliver filled me in while you were unconscious. The mission in Afghanistan that went wrong. The soldiers who died because of intelligence failures. Gabriel's jaw tightened. David was the intelligence officer who cleared that operation. His information got my entire unit killed. Except you. Except me. The words were bitter as poison. Lucky me. Oliver appeared at the window, his face grim. They're surrounding the house. At least 12 men, all armed. Professional military contractors by the look of them. Sound of breaking glass came from upstairs, followed by heavy footsteps. The Torino family wasn't taking any chances this time. They were coming from all directions. Maya finished bandaging Gabriel's shoulder and helped him to his feet. Your brother is 15 minutes out with a federal response team. We just need to stay alive that long. 15 minutes might as well be 15 hours. Gabriel checked his weapon, counting ammunition with practiced efficiency. We're outnumbered. 4-1, trapped in a house with more holes than walls. Then we make them work for it. Oliver produced another pistol from somewhere inside his jacket. I didn't survive 2 tours in Iraq to get taken out by mob thugs in Thunder Bay. Maya stared at the 2 men, both preparing to die for her, and felt something break open in her chest. Not fear this time, but fury. White-hot rage at the injustice of it all. Her parents murdered for trying to do the right thing. Her grandmother dead from the stress of seeking justice. Gabriel bleeding because he'd spent years trying to find the truth. There's another way, she said quietly. Both men turned to look. At her, I give them what they want. The USB drive. I tell them where it is, they leave you alone. Absolutely not. Gabriel's voice was steel. The moment they get that drive, they'll kill all 3 of us anyway. Not if I'm not here. Maya moved to the kitchen counter where her phone lay. Before either man could stop her, she was dialing the number Vincent had used earlier to call his father. Maya, don't. Gabriel reached for the phone, but she stepped back. The call connected on the second ring. Who is this, Maya Chen? I want to make a deal. Silence on the other end, then a voice like gravel and smoke. Miss Chen, I was hoping we could have a civilized conversation. Your son and his men are dead. So is Marcus. But you still want what? My father left behind, and I still want to stay alive. Seems like we have common ground. What are you proposing? I'll leave now alone. I go back to Toronto and get the USB drive. When I have it, I call you. We arrange an exchange. It's a drive for safe passage out of the country for me and my friends. Gabriel was shaking his head violently, but Maya ignored him. Interesting, Vincent. Father said, why would I trust you to honor such an arrangement? Because I'm tired of running? Because I want this nightmare to end, and because you know I can't hide from you forever. True, but you could have copies made. I could. Copies won't help my friends. Only the original will satisfy you enough to let them live. Another pause. Longer this time. You have 2 hours to be on the road to Toronto. If you're not in your apartment by dawn, I start killing people you care about. Starting with the bleeding. Man beside you. The line went dead. Gabriel grabbed her arm, his grip fierce despite his injury. This is suicide, Maya. Even if you give him the drive, he'll hunt you down eventually. Maybe. But it gives you and Oliver time to get clear. Time for your brother to build a case against the family. And what about us? The question escaped Gabriel before he could stop it, raw and vulnerable in a way that made Maya's heart clench. She looked at him, this man who'd spent years seeking justice for parents he'd never met, who'd risked his life to protect her tonight. There is no us, Gabriel. There never could be. I'm Benjamin Chen's daughter, remember? Trouble follows me wherever I go. That's not true, isn't it? Maya gestured toward the broken windows, the blood on the floor, the sound of armed men positioning themselves outside. Look around you. This is what my life brings to people, Oliver interrupted them. They're moving! Getting into position for an assault, we need to decide now. Maya was already heading for the back door. I'm leaving. Give me 5 minutes, then surrender. Tell them I'm going for the drive. Gabriel followed her, moving faster than he should. Have been able to with his injury, Maya. Please, don't do this. She stopped at the door and turned to face him. Rain was still falling beyond the threshold, washing the world clean. In another life, Gabriel Morrison, I think I could have loved. You. Before he could respond, she was gone. Disappearing into the storm like a ghost, Maya ran through the forest behind her grandmother's house. Branches tearing at her clothes and rain soaking through to her skin, she could hear shouts behind her. As the Torino soldiers discovered her escape, but she didn't look back. She couldn't afford to. The tree line ended at a service road that connected to the highway. Maya had walked this path as a child, exploring the woods while her grandmother tended the garden. Now it felt like running through memories, each step taking her further from the life she'd tried to build and deeper into the legacy. Her father had left her. Her rental car was parked where she'd left it, 2 miles down the road at a 24-hour diner. Maya drove through the night, pushing the speedometer as high as she dared. Racing against dawn and her own breaking heart, Toronto appeared on the horizon as the sky began to lighten. The city skyline rising from Lake Ontario like a promise of sanctuary she knew was false. Maya's apartment building looked exactly as she'd left it 48 hours ago, but everything had changed. She was no longer a successful businesswoman coming home from settling her grandmother's estate. She was a target, a woman carrying the weight of her family's sins. The USB drive was exactly where she'd left it, wrapped in her father's brown paper and hidden behind a loose baseboard in her bedroom closet. Maya held the small device in her palm, marveling at how something so insignificant could have cost so many lives. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You have 1 hour to be at the address I'm sending you. Come alone. Bring the drive." Maya looked around her apartment at the life she'd built from nothing. The paintings she'd restored hanging on her walls, each one a small triumph over time and neglect. The books that had taught her everything her father couldn't. The photographs of friends and colleagues who had no idea what kind of darkness followed her. She was writing goodbye letters when her phone rang. "Maya." Gabriel's voice was rough with exhaustion and pain. "Thank God you made it. Are you safe? For now, your call to David worked. The FBI raided 3 Torino properties this morning. Arrested half the family. The old man is still out there and he still wants that drive." "I know. I'm meeting him in an hour. Don't do this. We can find another way." Maya closed her eyes, memorizing the sound of his voice. "There is no other way, Gabriel. This ends today one way or another. Maya, listen to me. I've been looking at the case files, the financial records your grandmother left behind. There's something you need to know about that USB drive." "What?" "It's not just evidence of money laundering. Your father was documenting something bigger, a network of offshore accounts that connects the Torino family to terrorist funding, arms dealing, human trafficking. That drive doesn't just contain evidence of financial crimes. It contains evidence of treason." Maya's blood ran cold. "How do you know this?" "'Cause David's been tracking the same money trails from the federal side. The intelligence community has been trying to crack this network for years. Then the drive is more valuable than Vincent ever knew, and more dangerous. Maya, if you give this to the old man, you're not just letting a crime family off the hook. You're giving them the keys to cover up connections that could topple governments." Maya sank into her kitchen chair, the weight of decision crushing down on her. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying your father didn't just leave you evidence. He left you a weapon, something powerful enough to destroy the entire network. Or powerful enough to get me killed in ways I can't imagine." Gabriel's voice softened. "I won't lie to you. This is bigger than we thought. But Maya, you're not alone in this anymore. David's team is moving into position around the meeting site. If you're willing to trust us, we can end this today." Maya looked at the USB drive in her hand, then at the goodbye letters spread across her table. "What do you need me to do?" "Exactly what you planned. Meet with Torino, make the exchange. But instead of the real drive, you give him a dummy. David's tech team prepared it while you were driving back. Contains just enough real financial data to look authentic, but nothing that would compromise the investigation. And if he checks it before letting me go, silence on the other end of the line. Gabriel. Then you run like hell and hope we can get to you in time." Maya almost laughed. After everything they'd been through, it still came down to hope. "Where's the dummy drive?" "Check your mailbox." Maya went downstairs and found a small package wedged behind her mailbox. Inside was a USB drive identical to her father's, along with a note in Gabriel's handwriting, "For someone who believes in doing the right thing, even when it's impossible." She was walking back upstairs when she heard footsteps in the hallway behind her. Maya turned to find a man in an expensive suit, waiting by her door. He was older than Vincent had been, with silver hair and eyes like winter ice. Vincent's father. He'd come to her. "Miss Chen, I thought we might skip the formalities and handle this transaction privately." Maya's hand moved instinctively toward her phone, but the old man shook his head. "No calls, no messages. You have something that belongs to me, and I've come to collect it." The meeting was supposed to be at the warehouse. "Plans change," he smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Shall we go inside and conclude our business?" Maya looked at him, then at the USB drive hidden in her jacket pocket. The real one, not Gabriel's dummy. In the chaos of the moment, she'd grabbed her father's drive instead of making the switch. One mistake. One moment of panic. And now she was facing Vincent Torino's father with the real evidence in her possession. No backup in place, and no way to signal for help. "Of course," she said, unlocking her apartment door. "Let's finish this." The old man moved through Maya's apartment like he owned it, his fingers trailing over her restored paintings with the casual entitlement of someone accustomed to taking what he wanted. Maya watched him from the kitchen doorway, her hand wrapped around the USB drive in her pocket, her heart hammering against her ribs. "Beautiful work," he said, studying a 15th century Madonna she'd spent 3 months restoring. "You inherited your father's eye for detail. He was very good at seeing patterns others missed, too good for his own survival, precisely." Old man turned to face her, and Maya saw where Vincent had gotten his cold smile. "Benjamin thought he was protecting his family by documenting our business arrangements. What he failed to understand is that some knowledge is too dangerous to possess, like the knowledge on that USB drive." "Exactly." He extended his hand, palm up, "which is why I'm here to relieve you of that burden." Maya pulled the drive from her pocket but didn't move closer. "First, I want your word that Gabriel Morrison and Oliver Hamilton won't be harmed." "You're hardly in a position to negotiate, Miss Chen, aren't I?" Maya held the USB drive over the garbage disposal. It's close to running water. One wrong move and 12 years of evidence disappears forever. The old man's eyes narrowed. "You wouldn't dare. Try me. I've got nothing left to lose." They stared at each other across the kitchen, two people caught in a dance as old as power itself. Maya could see the moment when he decided she was serious, when the calculation shifted in his mind. "Very well. Morrison and Hamilton will be left alone, provided they cease their investigation into my family's affairs. And you'll leave Toronto. Tonight, never come back." "Agreed." He took a step closer to the drive. Maya looked at the small device in her hand, thinking of her father's panicked voice that last night, the weight of responsibility he'd placed on her 17-year-old shoulders. She thought of Gabriel bleeding in her grandmother's kitchen, willing to die for justice he'd never see. She thought of all the innocent people whose names were probably buried in the files on this drive, accountants and lawyers and business owners who'd been coerced into complicity just like her father. "There's something you should know," she said. "I've already looked at what's on here." The old man went very still. "That was unwise. Probably. But it helped me understand why you're really here." Maya took a step back, keeping the disposal between them. "This isn't just about money laundering anymore. It's about the arms deals in Somalia, the human trafficking routes through Eastern Europe, the terrorist cells you've been funding in exchange. For protection, my father wasn't just your accountant. He was your historian. And now you understand why that history needs to be erased. What I understand is that you've been lying to me from the beginning. This was never about letting me walk away alive. You can't afford to let anyone who's seen this information survive." The old man's hand moved toward his jacket, but Maya was ready for him. "I wouldn't if I were you. The FBI is already moving against your family. Agent Morrison and his team have been building parallel cases against your operations for months. The only reason you're still free is because they were waiting for this." She held up the USB drive. "The missing piece that connects all your crimes. You're bluffing." Maya's phone buzzed with an incoming text. She glanced at it and smiled. "Gabriel says to tell you that federal agents are currently arresting your remaining lieutenants at the warehouse where we were supposed to meet. It's funny how things work out." The old man lunged for her, but Maya was already moving. She spun toward the disposal, thumb finding the switch, ready to destroy the evidence rather than let it fall into his hands. That's when Gabriel appeared in her doorway. His arm in a sling, but his gun steady in his good hand. Step away from her. Torino, the old man froze, his hand inches from Maya's wrist. Gabriel. Maya's voice carried a mixture of relief and accusation. How did you get here? The same way he did. I know you better than you think. Gabriel's eyes never left Torino. I knew you'd grabbed the wrong drive in the panic, knew you'd try to handle this alone. The apartment was supposed to be under surveillance. It is. My brother's people are watching every entrance to this building. But I asked them to give me 5 minutes before they moved in. Maya stared at him. Why? Gabriel's expression was gentle despite the gun in his hand. Because you deserve the chance to make this choice for yourself, not because the FBI needed. You too, not because your father expected you to, but because Maya Chen decided it was the right thing to do. The old man laughed bitterly. How touching. But you're both forgetting something important. What's that? Maya asked. I didn't come here alone. The sound of breaking glass came from Maya's bedroom, followed by heavy footsteps. 2 more men emerged from the hallway, weapons drawn, professional, and deadly. Gabriel shifted to cover Maya, but the odds had just shifted dramatically against them. Now then, the old man said, straightening his jacket. Let's discuss this like civilized people. Miss Chen, the drive. Maya looked at Gabriel, saw the resignation in his eyes. They were trapped, outgunned, out of options. But as she started to hand over the USB drive, she heard something that changed everything. Sirens, multiple vehicles, approaching fast. The old man heard them too. His face darkened as he realized what was happening. You set me up. No, Maya said. Gabriel set us both up. He knew I'd grabbed the wrong drive, knew I'd try to handle this alone. So he made sure backup was close enough to respond when things went wrong. Gabriel's smile was grim, but satisfied. David's team has been monitoring all cell phone traffic in this building for the past hour. The moment Torino showed up, they started moving. The footsteps in the hallway were getting louder now. Federal agents, heavily armed, surrounding the apartment. The old man's lieutenant stepped forward, his weapon trained on Maya's head. We can still salvage this. Take her as a hostage, fight our way out. No, the voice came from Maya, strong and clear. She can't. She was looking at Gabriel as she spoke, and he understood immediately what she intended. Maya, don't. But she was already moving, diving toward the garbage disposal, the USB drive clutched in her fist. The lieutenant's shot went wide, shattering the kitchen window. Maya's thumb found the switch, and the disposal roared to life. For a moment that lasted. Forever, Maya held the drive over the grinding mechanism. 12 years of evidence, her father's legacy, the key to bringing down an international criminal network. All of it balanced on the edge of destruction. Then Gabriel spoke, his voice cutting through the chaos. The drive is backed up. Everyone froze. Asterisk, what? The old man snarled. Gabriel's smile was triumphant now. Maya's been working with David's forensic accountants for weeks, separating the evidence that implicates criminals from the information that would destroy innocent people. The FBI has everything they need to prosecute your family and your network. That drive is just insurance. Maya stared at him. You've known all along? Your grandmother contacted my brother months ago. This whole thing, Maya. Meeting you, falling for you, protecting you. It was all part of the operation. The words hit Maya like physical blows. She staggered back from the disposal, the USB drive falling from nerveless fingers. You used me. Gabriel's expression crumbled. It started that way. But Maya, everything I feel for you is real. Everything we've been through together is real. You lied to me. I protected you. The apartment door exploded inward as federal agents stormed the room. The old man and his men were on the ground in seconds, hands zip-tied behind their backs. David Morrison stepped through the chaos, his badge visible, his team efficient and professional. Miss Chen, are you injured? Maya shook her head, unable to speak. She was staring at Gabriel, trying to process the magnitude of his deception. "Gabriel, we need to get you medical attention," David said. "That shoulder wound is worse than you let on. I'm fine." Gabriel's eyes never left Maya's face. "Maya, please, let me explain." But Maya was already walking toward her bedroom, stepping over the debris of her shattered life. At the doorway, she turned back. "Hey, don't contact me again, Gabriel. Either of you. I've given you what you needed. Now leave me alone, Maya." I said, "Leave me alone." 6 months later, Maya stood in a gallery in Prague, putting the finishing touches on a painting that had taken her 3 centuries to restore. The work had consumed her completely, filling the empty spaces where hope used to live. She'd moved to Europe after the trials. After watching Vincent Torino's father and his remaining associates receive life sentences after Gabriel's testimony helped convict 17 members of the international criminal network her father had documented. She'd kept the newspaper clippings about the case, though she wasn't sure why. Gabriel had been decorated for his undercover work, his brother promoted within the FBI. The story had been front-page news for weeks. Justice served, criminals brought to account. International cooperation succeeding where individual efforts had failed. None of the articles mentioned what it had cost her to trust someone again. None of them mentioned the dreams she still had about dancing with Gabriel in her grandmother's ballroom, or the way her heart still skipped as she heard his name on the news. She was cleaning her brushes when the gallery owner approached. "Ms. Chen, there's someone here to see you. Says he's a friend from America." Maya's hands went still. She didn't turn around, but she could feel Gabriel's presence in the doorway like a physical weight. "Maya, the gallery is closed, Mr. Morrison." "No. I waited until closing time because I thought you might prefer privacy for this conversation." Maya finally turned around. Gabriel looked older, worn down by months of testimony and debriefings. His shoulder had healed, but he moved carefully, like someone who'd learned not to take physical integrity for granted. "What do you want?" Gabriel pulled an envelope from his jacket. "I wanted to give you this. It's from your father." Maya's breath caught. "That's impossible. Your grandmother left it with David, along with instructions to give it to you only after the case was closed." Gabriel set the envelope on the work table between them. "She said Benjamin wrote it the night before. He died, that he wanted you to have it if something happened to him." Maya stared at the envelope, her father's handwriting spelling out her name in careful script. "Why didn't David give it to me himself?" "Because I asked him not to. Because I wanted to be the one to bring it to you." Gabriel took a step closer. "Maya, I know you hate me. I know you have every right to hate me, but I need you to understand something." "What?" "Everything I told you about falling for you was true. The investigation, the deception, all of that was real. But so was this." He gestured between them, his voice breaking slightly. "So was falling in love with you." Maya felt tears start down her cheeks, but her voice remained steady. "It doesn't matter what you felt, Gabriel. You built our entire relationship on a lie. I built it on the job, yes. But I sustained it because of who you are." Gabriel's eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Maya, you are the strongest, most brilliant, most beautiful person I've ever known. You saved my life 12 times during this case, not just physically, but spiritually. You reminded me what it means to fight for something that matters. Pretty words, but they don't change what you did." Gabriel nodded, accepting the judgment. "No, they don't. But Maya, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for another chance. I'm asking for one moment of honesty between us." "What kind of honesty?" "The kind where you tell me if what we had was real for you too, even if it can't be real anymore." Maya looked at him, this man who'd saved her life and broken her heart, who'd given her justice and stolen her trust. She thought about the nights they'd spent planning their moves against the Torino family, the way he'd held her when the nightmares came, the morning she'd woken up in his arms and felt, for just a moment, like she belonged somewhere. "Yes," she whispered. "It was real for me too." Gabriel's shoulders sagged with relief. "Thank you, but it's also over." "I know." Maya picked up her father's letter, holding it like something fragile and precious. "Goodbye, Gabriel." Gabriel walked toward the door, then stopped. "Maya? What?" I hope someday you find someone who deserves what you have to give. Someone who can love you without lying to you. I hope someday you figure out how to save people without destroying them." Gabriel nodded and walked out of the gallery, out of Maya's life, carrying with him the weight of choices that could never be undone. Maya waited until she heard his footsteps fade before opening her father's letter. The paper was yellowed with age, but her father's words were clear and strong. "My dearest Maya, if you're reading this, then the worst has happened, and your mother and I are gone. I want you to know that everything we did, every choice we made, was to protect you and give you a chance at the life we couldn't have. The evidence I've left behind will seem like a burden, but it's also a gift of truth, of justice, of the power to make the world a little bit better than we found it. Use it wisely, my daughter. Use it with courage. And remember that love, real love, is worth fighting for, even when the fight breaks your heart. Your mother and I will be watching over you, proud of the woman you've become. Oh, my love always, Dad." Maya folded the letter carefully and slipped it into her purse. Outside, Prague was coming alive with the sounds of evening, tourists and locals mixing in the ancient streets. She had a life here now, work that mattered, friends who knew nothing about her past. Should have been enough. But as she locked the gallery and walked into the cool European night, Maya found herself wondering if her father was right. If love was worth fighting for, even when the fight broke your heart, especially then. 6 blocks away, in a hotel room overlooking the Voltava River, Gabriel Morrison stared out at the city lights and wondered if he'd made the right choice in coming. Here, he'd wanted to see her one more time, to apologize properly, to try to explain what she'd meant to him during those weeks when they'd been partners in more than just crime fighting. But seeing the pain in her eyes, the careful way she'd held herself apart from him, Gabriel realized that some wounds were too deep to heal with words. Some betrayals were too profound to forgive, even when love was real on both sides. His phone buzzed with a text from David. "Flight leaves in 2 hours. You ready to come home?" Gabriel typed back, "On my way." But first, he had one more stop too. At a flower shop near the hotel, he bought a single white rose. Then he walked through the twisting streets to the gallery where Maya worked, where he'd just seen her for what he knew would be the last time. He left the rose by the front door with a note that simply said, "For someone who believes in doing the right thing, even when it's impossible, thank you for saving my soul. G." By the time Maya found the rose the next morning, Gabriel Morrison was already 30,000 feet over the Atlantic, carrying with him the memory of a woman who taught him that some prices were too high to pay, even for justice, and in Prague. Maya Chen stood holding a white rose and a note from a man who'd shown her that love and betrayal could exist in the same heart. That saving the world sometimes meant sacrificing your own happiness. That the right thing and the easy thing were rarely the same. She pressed the rose between the pages of her father's letter and went inside to begin another day of bringing beauty back to things that time had broken. Some wounds she was learning never fully healed. But they could be transformed into something else, something that looked like wisdom, felt like strength, and carried within it the faint, persistent hope that somewhere in the world, love was still worth believing in. Even when it broke your heart, especially then, ***, will love survive when everything is built on lies? A romance so intense it will leave you breathless plot twists that will shatter your expectations she's worth billions. But all she wants is the truth. Some secrets are worth dying for. What would you do if the person you loved had been lying to you from the very beginning? Let me know in the comments below. Like this video if you love stories with complex characters and emotional depth. Subscribe for more intense romance and thriller stories. Comment your thoughts on Maya and Gabriel's impossible love story, Chi End.